Hey everyone, it's James Theochris with Melody of Music Introducers, and today I'm joined by Inad Lzbth. Hopefully, I'm saying your name
Hi.
right.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, today we're going to find a bit more about Inad as an artist, as a brand, as a musician, as a person, and yeah. So, how first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's a good day. About you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
So, um, I've had a little bit of a listen to some of your songs, and I mean, I've got a favorite, but I'm not going to say it just yet. So
Okay.
what is your favorite song that you've written so far?
Oh God. That I've written so far,
Yeah.
I kind of have two. I have one that's already out and one that I wrote the other day that I haven't even brought into the studio yet, but I know that I'm going to because if I don't, that would be like a crime. Um, so the one that's out that I think is my favorite is On My Mind. Granted, this changes with my mood. Like some days it's Forces of Nature, but usually it's on my mind just because it's fun and you can kind of dance to it. Um, and then my favorite one that I just wrote the other day is She's on the Run, and it's stuck in my head all the time. And I'm so excited to like get in the studio and make it happen because I can hear exactly how I want it done in my head. And Justin, the producer that I work with, can basically read my mind. So I'm really excited to word vomit at him what I'm hearing in my head and have him somehow be able to translate the meaningless words that I tell him into exactly what I'm hearing in my brain.
Nice. Yeah, so I can quite easily say there's a motorbike outside. Um, I yeah, I could quite easily say that my favorite is on my mind. It's just one which
Oh,
you can kind
really?
of put on, and you can kind of just lose yourself in it. It's quite yeah, it's really really good.
Oh, thank you so much.
Welcome. So
That
this
means a
brings me
lot.
on to a separate point, is what's your favorite song to perform?
I actually haven't performed any of my own music live. Things have been really hectic over here. Um, just because I've been starting a new job and blah blah blah, a million other things. So, I want to perform live. I haven't performed live as an individual artist yet. Um, but I'm really looking forward to performing On My Mind live because I think it's just really fun and I think it would be a good like kind of crowd pleaser moment. I'm looking forward to that one day.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm definitely gonna look forward to seeing it on your Instagram and everything when it comes out that you've done that.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so who inspired you to make music? Is there anyone in particular or
Yeah, so that process kind of started in 2021. I was talking to a friend who was a huge Swiftie, and she she wanted to do like a listening party for Fearless Taylor's version. And I love a good listening party. So I was like, absolutely, sure. And listening to it made me feel like if someone can just write songs about their feelings and their life, and obviously like I know Taylor Swift and I'm a huge Swiftie, but like just like sitting down and listening to that moment is when it kind of clicked and I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. And I had growing up a family friend, Dave Barrett, and he writes and records music and shares it, and it's incredible music. And for years, even before this point, my mom has been urging me. She's like, talk to Dave, because she's like, you write well and you can sing. Like, go talk to Dave. And in 2021, I she sent me some of Dave's music, and I sent Dave just some thoughts and then some of my own music. And we started kind of collaborating, bouncing ideas back and forth. And I really see him as like a mentor because he's really honest with me. If I send him something and he's like, I think you should change this, or this isn't this isn't your best, maybe set this aside and revisit it another day. Um but he really kind of helped push me into that, and so did my mom and so did Taylor Swift.
oh nice. So Dave, is he sort of a close family friend, which is how you know him or
Yeah, he's a family friend. He's known my parents since before I was born.
Oh,
He's more my parents' age. And I'm not entirely sure the lore of how he came into our lives or anything. I know like bits and bobs, and I don't know if I'm permitted to share those bits and
that's
bobs, so I'm
fine.
not going
But
to.
so
Um,
is he a producer, songwriter, or is he a mixture of both?
he's a
Instrumentalist?
songwriter. He's a songwriter. He just released in January. I don't remember if it was January 2023 or 2024, but he released an album called Stockton Avenue, and it's really incredible. And I got to be in the studio for some of that process and kind of see what was going on before I even stepped into the studio for my own work, which I think was a really valuable experience. Um, but he's a songwriter. He's been doing it for a really long time. I was first introduced to his music by my dad, who had like this really long playlist of all our favorite songs, and one of them was one of Dave's songs from one of his older albums, Fate and Stitches. It was called Boston Cream, and it was um that's the kind of song that like just gets stuck in your head real easy, at least for me. So I he writes music and then he brings it to someone who can bring it to life, and he plays guitar incredibly, and I'm really grateful that I have someone that I can like ask questions to because he has all this experience, and I've been talking to him a lot about starting to play live and like what that would look like and how to go about doing that. So I'm
Oh,
really grateful.
nice. So is he like helped you write like lyrics or for any of your songs previously?
He's helped me kind of like I've bounced ideas off of him, and he's given me really incredible suggestions and really incredible ideas. Um, he won't let me give him writing credits for like the suggestions that he gives me. And I'm like, well, I mean, technically that is a word that you told me to use, so like technically you should get a writing credit. But he was like, no, you wrote that. And I'm like, well, no, that's a lie. Um, so yes, and also like a lot of the time I'll send him like a million voice memos of like the same song, and he'll say I like this version or I like that version, and or like I like this part and this one and this part and that one, and we'll like play with it and like piece it together. So it's like a weird process because a lot of the time it's just me sitting at my piano and in a frenzy and sending him like a million voice memos, but I think it's fun.
Yeah, so I mean that's usually the case, isn't it? Just having someone that you know as an incredibly talented songwriter you can bounce ideas off of and get assistance with. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that must be such a huge help for you when you
Yeah.
starting out as a musician.
It's really, I think, really special.
Yeah. So if anyone out there, if you have anyone that's already started, go and bounce ideas off them if you're looking to start,
Please.
because it's so helpful.
It
Um,
is.
yeah. So if you, I've noticed on your Instagram, separate to your own music, you've been, or is it your YouTube as well? You've been uploading
Yeah.
covers of other songs. Is
Hmm.
there any that you would want to re-record as a cover and release?
Hmm. Okay. I am really into doing mashups. That kind of started when I was in college a cappella, and I would do the arrangements and I would put those together, and I would be like, oh my God, this chord progression is friends with this one from this song. So let's make them friends in this like one unit. And I've been doing that a lot. When I sit down to do covers, I'll like start like doing one song and then I'm like, wait a minute, this could be friends with. And I think my favorite cover that's a mashup that I did that if I could bring it into the studio and like put it out, I think it would be the one that's My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys, and it's combined with Dress and Maroon. So it's three different Taylor Swift songs, but it's all combined into like one hodgepodge situation that is almost like about all the same like heartbreak and love and like aching and like the duality of like highs and lows in that I think is really interesting and could be fun to like play with different things in production.
Oh, nice. So it in
Yeah.
the space that we've been doing this so far, you've mentioned Taylor Swift, I think, twice. Is it fair to say that
Yeah, sorry.
you're a little bit of a Swiftie?
A little bit. Yeah,
Okay.
kind of. Yeah.
So to
It's
what
hard
ex
to avoid her in the media though. She's everywhere.
to what extent does she kind of influence your music with the idea that you've listened to some of her songs and maybe come up with ideas for maybe some of the songs that we will hear or some of the songs that you're working on?
Yeah, so I think um for me, the biggest thing that influences me about her is her lyricism. I think that she does a really great job of putting feelings and telling stories into onto a page, putting those things onto a page and making it make sense. And I'm of the belief, someone told me this and it resonated with me, and I tell this to everybody, that any form of art, whether it's performance art, whether it's visual art, whether it's music, whatever it is, the entire purpose of it is to make somebody feel something. And I think she does an incredible job of that. And I'm like, I have a really eclectic uh list of influences that like range from like May and Pop Girls, and then also we have like bands just out of nowhere, and then Florence and the Machine and the Cranberries and Glass Animals. It's very, I'm pulling from a lot of different places. And I think lyrically, she's the one that's like in the back. Like I hear her voice in the back of my head saying, try this, you know?
Yeah, I mean that goes to show. I think with most musicians, like this is going to be the second or third podcast in a row that I've mentioned him. But Ed Sheeran for me is a
Oh,
massive. I massive
he's
whenever I
incredible.
write. That's my yeah, that's who I look to as that. Okay, that's the next step. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so that's yeah, but that's so cool the fact that you do pull from other people, but use her as sort of like a source point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So the yeah, I want to try and move from Taylor Swift because it's kind of like
Yes, please.
otherwise we
I'm
will
so
just be
sorry.
talking about no, it's fine. I don't mind talking about Taylor Swift, but it's kind of like we need to talk about
Oh,
you.
no, do I. Yeah,
uh,
please.
so when writing, why do you
Mhm.
choose to write about themes? We've kind of touched on this already, but why do you choose to write about themes about growing up, falling in love, human experiences, concepts of
I
fate?
think it's, yeah, I think it's because that's something that like I just think about a lot. I didn't believe in fate until there was a situation where um during quarantine, I had started my date whoa. I had started dating my partner um in 2018. We just celebrated our 6 year anniversary. And during quarantine, we lived with his mom and his sister. Um and I was talking about something that I did in high school marching band and a specific speech that was incorporated into the show. And um, John's little sister was in marching band at the same time that I was, but at a different school. And I t didn't know that we had gone to the same contests because it was just not on my radar. And I just didn't think about it because I didn't know them at the time. That was 2 years before we ever even
Yeah.
knew each other existed. And I was telling her about this show. I was telling his mom about this show and this speech. It was the Man in the Arena speech. Um, and she pulled out her phone and she had the entire show recorded in her camera roll, the entire like 10-minute show recorded in her camera roll. And
Oh
like
dear.
there were times where like it zoomed in on me and I was like, this is jarring. This is terrifying. So like I used to be like, maybe fate's real, but now I'm like, that's a little too on the nose for it to be full on fate. Like that's a little spooky. Um, like the fact that she had not only like recorded the entire show, but had it in her phone from 2016 all the way to 2020. She like to this day still has it. It's wild to me. So like that's just something that is on my mind all the time. And like love and relationships, that's also just something that I think about a lot because I think those things go hand in hand. Um, and then like growing up, I think I've been struggling a lot with the concept of like being an adult, which sounds so stupid. But
It's
I've
fair.
been feeling really frustrated with the idea, the and this kind of leads me into talking about She's on the Run, because the song itself is about this entire thought process where um Western society, I think all society at this point, is so focused on like you have this very specific path. So you graduate from high school or whatever it is, and then you go on to do college and you get a degree and you get a job and you work until you die. And that just puts a bad taste in my mouth. It makes me feel sick. All of the things that I am really deeply passionate about, the jobs would not make a living wage, unless I get just ridiculously lucky. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm just kind of like I do things that I'm just not deeply passionate about, and it's really hard for me. It feels like I'm not feeding my soul, which is a whole other thing. But I was thinking a lot about like how my values compare to that, and that whole song is about comparing my values to what society kind of has as its standard and how I perceive everyone else's perception of me. So it's kind of like a mirror and me like talking about this is what they probably are saying in their heads about me.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of being an adult, so to touch on
Hmm.
that for a second, it's kind of this thing with every musician that unless you know people everywhere and you can like, oh, I need to go perform there. I know someone there. I can just sleep on their couch, or
Hmm.
like there's like little ways around things. A lot of musicians have to like kind of suck up their pride a bit and get a full-time job or even a
Hmm.
part-time job just to pay for stuff.
Right.
And it's not ideal because it's not the career path that you would want because like
Exactly.
you can't just be like or just a songwriter or just a singer or just a guitarist or just a pianist or you have to do something else as well, which is not ideal, but it's the industry.
Right. It's
And
just what you gotta do.
yeah, and actually having people write about that is probably actually quite useful because a lot of people then be like, oh, well, damn. That's it is tricky.
Yeah. Making people feel a little less lonely in that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And just to touch back
Mhm.
on the fate idea of the fact that your partner's mum has a video of you on a phone from years ago, that's insane.
It's wild. When I found that out, I was like, I need to sit down. I was like sweating. I was like unwell. It was it was a lot. It was funny though, because what is that? That's so silly.
But so you were part of a marching band, but did you also grow up attending choir and dance?
Yes. So growing up, I did ballet and all that kind of stuff, and I did show choir and a cappella and stuff like that in middle school and high school and grade school. And then did a cappella in college, and I did the color guard in the marching band. So I didn't play an instrument in the marching band. I spun like the flags and the rifles and all of that fun stuff. And I think that really shaped a lot of the music that I listened to because I never would have listened to nearly as much music that uses like strictly vocoder um, without doing marching band and a cappella because so many of the pieces that a lot of groups will use or that you'll see in a lot of shows um, come from like incredible artists. Like there's a song called Hymn of Axiom. I might be pronouncing that wrong by Vienna Tang. That is absolutely beautiful, but it's just vocoder and like just layered vocals. And I've heard it sung by choirs. I've heard it played by horns. It is beautiful every time and in every form. And I think that that's definitely like an avenue that I want to play with is just like doing something that's strictly just vocals and an environment, like an ambiance sort of thing
Oh,
at
nice.
some point.
So when you
Yeah.
say show choir, so we don't have show choirs in England. So
Oh,
are we talking Glee kind of show choirs? Are we talking? Because I'm really out of depth with show choirs. All I know is choir. And that's all we've got.
so this is actually kind of funny. So the school that Glee is based off of is the high school that I went to. So when people are like, "Oh, you did show choir like Glee," and I'm like,
Oh,
quite literally like Glee, actually, which is really silly. Um,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
the yeah, it's a whole thing. I could get into it, but I'm not going to because it's a whole thing. But basically, show choir, it's not really like musical theater and it's not really just pop music. It's a little bit of like, it's like if those two things were friends and they gave you risers. So like it's the stage and then there's like four levels behind and each one's like 4 feet wide or something. I don't know. And you dance and you sing at the same time, and by the end of the show you're like panting because it's like an 18-minute show and you're like,
Oh
oh
my
my God,
God.
I just ran a mile. It's a whole thing, but it was truly one of the most special experiences. I feel like it's really fun. Those specific activities, show choir, marching band, a cappella, people don't want to see you fail. People don't want to see you not do well. People in those programs want to see you succeed, and they also just want to watch excellence, and
Yeah.
even if they are competing directly against you. So it's really fun at those contests because something will happen and the crowd's losing their marbles, and it's really special. Like the dance breaks at show choir contests, everyone's shouting and screaming and cheering you on, and it's really sweet. And I think that that's something that's gonna live with me forever, and I'm really grateful for that experience.
Amazing. So you mentioned that you want to do something purely like vocal based.
Mhm.
So that's amazing. But is there any chance that we will see like some we'll see some choral arrangements, but will we also see some future dancing music videos? 'Cause
Mayhaps. I mean,
I mean,
that depends
you
on what my
mentioned that you're a
budget winds up looking.
you mentioned you're a
Yeah.
Taylor Swift fan, and she literally just did "Shake It Off" as a whole music video just of her like supposedly badly dancing, as some people might say.
Yeah. Um, First off, that's an iconic
I know
music
that
video, so
is.
like totally. But I haven't even well, I've thought about music videos and like I have visions in my head, but ultimately I'm like that's a lot of money and I was just unemployed for 5 months. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Um and so like right now I'm like not in a position to like I'll have the visions in my head and I'm like don't think about that right now. Because then you'll get too excited about it and then you're gonna want to do it and then you can't right now. Um
Yeah.
but I'm hoping to do some sort of visuals to accompany my music at some point, whether it's music videos or something. Um, and I would probably do some dancing. There's one artist, I forget her name. Shoot. I think she's from Canada. I want to Google it so bad. I'm so sorry. But she does ballet and I love I love her music and I love her visuals because she is always dancing and she just has the most on point like facial expressions and I admire her so much. I'll message you her name. I'll look it up after this and send it to you so that we can properly credit her because she deserves it.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description of the YouTube video when it comes out.
Definitely.
Um, so I'm a little bit lost on the questions which that I had scheduled to ask.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's great. Uh, it just means I need to catch up with my thought process. Uh, so it seems like you vary how and where you write your music as well, based on what
Mhm.
I've seen on your website. So, do ideas catch you off guard and out of nowhere? Like, I know you mentioned in your blog posts on your website, the laundry room for Stockholm or the shower floor for Forces of Nature. Those are
Oh
quite
yeah.
random places to come up with song ideas.
Yeah. Whenever I feel stumped, I will put myself in the weirdest position. So like I will sometimes it's just go for a walk, but a lot of the time like if I'm going grocery shopping, I'll like get in the car after loading my groceries back into the car to go home and I'll like suddenly have an idea. And so I'll like whip out my phone and like sing something that is totally incoherent into my voice memos. And then I'll come home and I'll be like, I'll remember to look at that later. Sometimes I have like 500 plus voice memos that I just need to go through at some point. Um, because a lot of the time, like I'll have an idea and then I'll record it for myself so I don't forget it. And then I'll get home and get caught up in something else and then have a different idea and then forget to look back at that idea. And the problem is I don't label my voice memos. So there's just a bunch of just unlabeled things that I need to just sit down and go through. And it's going to be like an 8 hour process, but it'll happen at some point. It might be more.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I kind of had the same thing with my Logic projects that I recently
Really?
yeah, I recently just wiped my computer and after moving everything on a
Mhm.
hard drive and resetting it completely. And I've had to spend hours organizing my hard drive and going through and opening Logic projects and just be like, what mental state was I in when I wrote this?
Right.
Like there'd be that I remember one project had like bongos mixed with I don't even know an upright bass mixed with trumpets and but everything just seemed so incoherent.
But it sounds like a vibe.
It could be. However,
Could be a vibe.
it just makes absolutely no sense.
I think
So
that's the best though. Like I feel
yeah,
like when the process and like the thoughts almost make no sense, that's when the ideas actually are good, in my opinion. Because like when I was on the shower floor coming up with forces of nature, I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? I don't know what planet I'm on. It was, and I feel you with that because I was like, you hear things in your head and you're just like, okay,
yeah,
this is what I want to do and this is what it's gonna sound like. But then you just have to remember those things or write them down. Especially like if you, because I don't do my own production. I go to Way Sound Studios and work with Justin Lebrecht, who is incredible. And I just write things down in my everything journal, which I talked about on my TikTok. It's just I've gone through four in the past 2 years, and it's just a journal where I write every single thought that I have down. And there's a lot of thoughts apparently, considering how many I've gone through in 2 years. But it's I have to just write down the thought or like record a voice memo and then come to the studio and I'm like, I have three journals because I've gone through three journals since I started this idea. And I'm like, here are three journals. We have to find all the spots where I had these thoughts. And then we're also gonna, here are the voice memos where I had these thoughts. Decode them, please, Justin. Make them make sense.
uh,
And he
but I mean,
does.
that goes back to I know we meant talked about Jay, no Dave, and
Mhm.
how helpful he's been. But I suppose Justin has he worked on any other songs apart from On My Mind? Has he worked on the others as well?
Yeah, I've worked with Justin for all of the songs. Justin's actually a connection that I made through Dave because he produced Dave's album Stockton Avenue. Um, and basically what wound up happening was my first song that I ever put out, Stockholm, um, Dave, when I graduated college, was like, as a graduation present, I'm going to pay Justin to produce your song. And which was an incredible graduation present. It got me started on this whole journey. So I'm really, really grateful and I'm going to be grateful till the day I die for that because I don't know where I would
Oh,
be
that's
if I
amazing.
didn't start that. I probably would be losing my little mind. But he brought me into the studio and we put that song together and then I was just hungry for more after that point. And Justin and I think, have this really cool way of coming up with ideas and trying things that almost like I like to think of it as like being a mad scientist and like just experimenting until you find something that you're like, this is it. We're sticking with this one. Um, I love when we science fair it out in the studio. It's really fun. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it must be because it seems like you've gotten to know him over the time which you've worked on the tracks which you've released. And I mean, I suppose it is
Mhm.
kind of like a mad science with music because you don't know what will work until I mean, it's kind of like listening to. I mentioned that, or it was mentioned this song in a previous interview with, I think it was Shifra about Bohemian Rhapsody, and like
Mhm.
in the breakdown, they're talking about Biz Miller and
Mhm.
just like singing and Galileo and just singing absolute gibberish. Yet
Right.
it's probably one of the most popular songs
Mhm.
still.
The masterpiece.
um, Yeah, it's complete nonsense, but everyone loves it. It can't go wrong.
Right.
So I suppose
Yeah.
that's the thing
I think
is,
there's
yeah,
something to that.
yeah, there's method to the madness, isn't it? So
Right. And I also think, no,
yeah,
you're
go
good.
on.
I also think that like being in that like mad scientist mode is like so special to the creative process because like when I was doing the photo shoot for the image for Forces of Nature, I was in this room and that wall that has the cat tree had nothing because we didn't have the cats yet. And so I had a projector, but I had like it was sitting on a stack of books that was taller than it ever should be, and it was very precarious and very I would have probably gotten yelled at by my parents if they were like, if I lived with them, they would have been like, maybe don't do that. But it was like stacked, and then like there was I was using my phone to shoot the picture, and it was like I had a record playing, and John comes in, and he just looks at the projector, looks at me, looks back at the projector, and goes, "Oh no," and leaves. He's like, "I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get out of this room. I don't think I need to be part of this." It's a good time.
Uh, but I have to say, it worked out as an album cover. It's a really good album cover.
Thanks. I really like it. It was fun for me.
Yeah, no, it
Not
looks
fun to
really
clean up
cool.
though.
Well, the good stuff that you take as pictures usually isn't very fun to clean up.
Mm.
Um, so with music promotion, um, how do you feel having a focus on promotion sometimes more than songwriting? How does that sort of feel sometimes?
So it's kind of interesting for me specifically because I have um my college degree is I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies and a certificate in Leadership Studies. So essentially what that looks like for me is I spent a lot of time learning about how people work and how people communicate and also public relations and um communication both visually and verbally and all of that. And then my first job out of college was a marketing position. So I have experience understanding all of the pieces of that. However, like trying to figure out how do I want to market myself is kind of hard because I've always had trouble like with my own identity, like who am I and like what's going on with that? So it's always been kind of challenging for me to figure out like how do I want to market this and try not to think about like how like what if someone I know sees it and like thinks X, Y, and Z about it and try to like put that thought out of my head because like why should I care what they think? You know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I suppose, yeah,
Yeah.
and also I suppose having that degree is so helpful for you, and the years of marketing experience, because that like
Yeah.
like you can navigate social media so easily with that sort of
Yeah, I've
yeah.
sorry.
And I
What
was
were you
just
gonna
going to
say?
say, with that background, you can navigate it easily.
Yeah. I feel like I'm really comfortable with like understanding how the algorithms work and how best to use everything. Um, I just have trouble myself coming up with like what exactly am I going to say and like what is the message because I am so nervous about perception that I often will just like put it off to the point where it's too late and then I just have to like change directions and do something completely different because I was just too nervous to do the thing, which is so silly and I just need to put on my big girl pants and not do that, but we're getting better.
Yeah. I mean, it's always that thing as an artist. You don't want to misrepresent yourself in any sort of way. You want to have one image, and that's your image, and you stick with it. And it's difficult when you need to switch it up a bit every so often. So I do get that.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but what specifically makes you different in your genre to other people that might be getting started? Do you think?
I think I think for me it's like very almost, I don't want to use the word theatrical, but I do want to use the word dramatic because I am dramatic and a little over dramatic sometimes. And like I'll write something and I'll be like, oh my God, everyone's gonna think I'm like blowing this so out of proportion. But then I'm like, wait a minute. if you listen to like every artist ever, like their lyrics are never going to be like, and then I had soup for dinner. Like, no, they're going to tell this story and over dramatize it and
Hmm.
make
Hmm.
it something that's actually interesting to listen to rather than just like, you made me cry and that sucked. Like, no, boring, ew, boo.
Yeah.
Um, they're gonna make it over the top. And I try to do that also with the production, especially after like being in show choir and marching band. I think that shaped a lot of my production ideas that I spew at Justin. I'll be like, and then I want it to be like really loud and then really quiet all of a sudden, and then I want it to do this, and then I want this sound, and he's like, okay. But
Okay.
he
Yeah.
always makes it happen, and it turns out better than I would have ever imagined.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah, with music now and always with music, it's a
Mhm.
story. All
Right.
music is a story. And if it's not if it's not over dramatized, it's like when you go to the cinema and watch a movie, or you turn on Netflix and go and watch a TV show. Like it
Mhm.
needs to be over dramatic. Not to the extent that you don't want to listen to it, but it needs to influence like to an extent.
Right.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah.
also like with that, a lot of artists like Hosier, the way his, I think I'm pronouncing that right or wrong. I have no idea. Um, do you know
I think it's
how to
Hosier.
pronounce
I
it?
say Hosier.
Hosier?
Yeah,
Hosier?
I think it's said
Okay.
differently all over the place.
Okay. Well, his music is like the the dramaticism in the lyrics, and I took a
Hmm.
lot of inspiration from him for Forces of Nature. Um, the way he kind of builds his songs, it always kind of like grows in a way where it becomes bigger than itself. And that's something that's a tool that I think is so important for making someone feel something. When you are in a position where you're wanting someone to feel like for Forces of Nature, you want someone to feel like that big, dramatic, like, oh my God, I'm so in love, blah, 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 sort of deal. You have to not only do it with the words, but you also have to do it with the sound. So the way we built that, like when we brought Kevin Spielman in for guitar, I was like, I need it to feel like you're like floating, you know? And he was like, okay,
Uh,
you know?
yeah. I mean, what's funny for me is that there's so many musicians, like instrumental players especially, and vocalists. I mean, when I was doing my degree, and this is just some a little bit of a note for anyone new out there. They were sort of saying, right, they gave me a bit of paper, and I had a partner. They're just like, right, describe this artist, and so that they can guess without saying their name, or like you could say a genre, you can say. But the thing is, like musicians now have to be so flexible, and producers as well, like without saying, oh yeah, I want it to be like I'm gonna say Taylor Swift because I can't think of another artist anymore. But without saying, oh, that's Taylor Swift. Like,
Mhm.
oh, so okay, so folky mixed with pop, mixed with bright vocals, mixed with and like okay, a little bit of country elements from before. Okay, well that's Taylor Swift. But like
Mhm.
musicians now, like you've got to be able to and just like pick up based on small little descriptive words. I don't know whether you found that like, the people that you've worked with, they can just pick things up based on what you've described.
Yeah, that's something that I really appreciate because I feel like I'm not the best at describing what's happening in my brain. So like um when I have an idea and I bring it to Justin in the studio, I'll tell him like, "Hey, I want it to start like this, and then I want it like at the end, I want it to feel like you like dropped off a whoa. I want it to feel like you dropped off a cliff." And he's like, and then he's like, "Oh, wait, no, I know what you mean. Okay, yeah, sure." So I think having someone where like you can bounce the ideas off of and you can go back and forth until you're like, oh, I know what you mean and I know how I can make that happen, is so special because like he'll have ideas sometimes that are like, okay, I want you to try this. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Can you explain it differently? And then he's like, yes. And then he'll explain it. And then I'm like, oh, and then we'll like it's magical. And it's so I think it's interesting to see like how different people describe different things. Because like if I was to describe an artist like Taylor Swift, I don't know if I would have used the same descriptors as you because
Yeah.
my brain just doesn't work in like that very logical way. It works in like a it sounds like this kind of way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's the cool thing about musicians now is that we've got to be able to be flexible with how we describe things, how we acknowledge things, how we and as you said with Justin, like the fact that you can describe it one way, like he can describe something one way, but then also have a way of describing it a different, like
Hmm.
a way, a different way, um,
Right.
is how everyone has to be in the studio. Because
Yeah.
unless you've worked with someone for ages, that you can just say things backwards and forwards because you know how each other thinks.
Hmm.
Um, when you're working with someone like for the first few times, you need to. There's a process there.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's value to that learning process though, because getting to know someone is like and like how they work both creatively and just as a person, I think is one of the most important parts of the creative process because
Mm,
it helps you to become more flexible and develop your own skills because you're not just getting to know someone, you're also learning how to communicate with them and how to work with them and how to bring things to the table differently rather than just being in your own brain bubble.
yeah. So on that note, we're gonna listen to some of your amazing music.
Yep.
Um, and we're gonna start with one which you released in December 2022 called Stockholm. So
Okay.
we'll both jump on mute. We'll listen to this. We'll listen to Stockholm, and then we'll jump back in and talk about it.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cross lake, cool air, sweet loons, black bears, the hills and trees whisper to me. They say, be here, come back each year, breathe in fresh air, nothing compares. Take me out to Stockholm every now and then. Hear the waves crash on the shore and hold my hand. Take me up to Stockholm time and time again. Tell me goodnight and kiss me before we go to bed. Northwood sunsets, your silhouette, long drives down roads we've come to know. It rains, stay in. How long's it been since we could breathe open and free? Take me out to Stockholm every now and then. Hear the waves crash on the shore and hold my hand. Take me up to Stockholm time and time again. Tell me goodnight and kiss me before we go to bed. La, la, la.
So that was Stockholm. Um, so first of all, I love the folky sort of element of just the acoustic guitar and you for most of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was when I was writing that, I was listening to a lot of Bon Iver. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Okay.
And I was really digging Skinny Love and the way the guitar rhythmically is. So that's kind of what I was trying to emulate there. And Dave, I think, did a really good job playing that um in a way that like had that rhythmic energy, but still felt like almost like ambient.
Yeah, that's so cool
Yeah,
because acoustic guitars, they have to be, you can't force an acoustic guitar on a song.
right.
It's kind of like any instrument needs to be, a lot of people think, oh yeah, you can just slap an acoustic guitar on it, but to play, it needs to be played right if it's just going to be guitar and vocals for most of it, and that was done really
Hmm.
nicely. And
Right. Thank you.
to separately point out, this was there a saxophone solo in there?
Yeah, we had some we it was done with keys. Um
Okay,
yeah, it
that's
was like a
fine.
last minute addition. We were like, we think we need saxophone.
Yeah,
So we threw that in there. But and horns too with keys. But yeah, Justin, he's an incredible keyboardist. He plays so well. It's wild.
mm.
And I was like, I feel like this needs like some wind instruments, like saxophone and like a French horn. And he was like, okay. And then he whipped out his keys and started just going ham. And it was beautiful. And I was like, leave it. Don't touch it. We're keeping that. Whatever take that was, it's in. I loved it.
Yeah, it's perfect because I mean, I've said this previously. Um, I love a saxophone part in a song. It's amazing, like
Mhm.
saxophone as an instrument. I'm not sure if there's much better.
Yeah.
It's just so smooth.
Yeah.
Like I've
It
known,
just does something. I don't know.
yeah, I've known three saxophone players. I've only worked with one, unfortunately, so far. But the every single time, like they'd pull up for a performance or like my song, "The End of Time." I think I've said this previously. And probably already said this in a podcast. Dave, another Dave, um, who turned up to the studio to help me record a saxophone part and a solo in the
Mm.
song. First take, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like,
There's my partner plays saxophone and
yeah,
I keep trying to get him to come into the studio to like just like put saxophone on literally anything because I just love the way it sounds. And
yeah,
he's like, but I'm out of practice. But every time I've heard him play, it sounded incredible. So
yeah,
this is a formal petition to get John to play saxophone on a track on one of my songs because it's a very public way of me saying, hey, please.
yeah. You can just play back this interview while you're sitting with him and just be like, "Oh, this one part."
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I will.
You can clip it and put it on Instagram just as like a poll. It's
Yeah.
like, should John play saxophone? Yes.
Yes. Hard yes.
So tell me about the song title, Stockholm. Have you been to Stockholm or?
So it's actually not about Stockholm, Sweden. It's about a town in Maine.
Okay.
And it's not actually about Stockholm, Maine, which there is a Stockholm, Maine. It's about a different town in Maine. But Sinclair just did not do it for me lyrically. I was like,
Yeah.
that just does not sound like it works, like vowel wise. Like it just sounded weird. So I was like, Stockholm's not far. We'll do that. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but it
Well,
catches the same vibes.
yeah, the song works.
Yeah, thanks.
So t tell me about the album cover as well, because like it's in a forest, it's on a road.
Yeah, so
What's
it's actually it's a picture that my John's mom took. She's an incredible artist. Jennifer Adrian's studio. If you're looking for some really sick art pieces, hit her up. She's got incredible stuff. But she had taken this picture and I really loved it because it felt like you were like it felt like a tunnel almost. It felt like you were going into
Yeah.
a different realm. And the way she edits photos too is very dreamy, and I love a dreamy moment visually and musically. So I was like, "Hey, can I use this as the album cover?" And she was like, "Yes, absolutely." And I was like, she wouldn't let me pay her for it, which was wild because I was like, I wanted to so bad, but she was like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, sorry." Um, but I think it's really pretty because that's the road that we drive on to get to the place that Stockholm is about. So there were other contenders, but they're also just similar in that like they're just pictures of the area because it's just really pretty. And this was before I was brave enough to attach my face to my music.
Mm.
So I was like, I need something that doesn't have me in it.
Well, it's a really lovely album cover. And
Thank you.
to query the little sort of symbol which you've got. So
Mhm.
what is that sort of your logo as an artist?
I mean, I've kind of adapted it. I got it tattooed on my foot in 2019 before I ever even wrote a song. And that's because it's the ancient rune for the letter D, and that is the first letter of my actual name that I'm not gonna put out in the world. But um it's it's the ancient rune for the letter D, and I just think it's a cool symbol. It just looks sick, and it's also just easy to draw. And so I was like, I could put that everywhere. So when I was trying to
Yeah,
figure out like what is my identity as an artist and how am I gonna like symbolize myself, I thought about that symbol just because it's easy, it's recognizable, and I can put it everywhere. And I do.
fair enough. Fair enough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah, as a logo for a brand, like it is a really, really easy one to recognize actually. So that's really
Yeah,
cool.
thanks. Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
so speaking a bit about the vocals, so is this the first song that you've been in the studio for and recorded vocals on in the studio?
Yeah, so this is the one that Dave uh, uh, sponsored as a graduation present for me after I got my undergrad degree. And it was my first time working with Justin. So, and I feel like you can kind of tell because like we were like this one's a lot more experimental
Mm,
in the process and also just in the product. You can kind of
yeah.
hear like they're learning they're learning each other. And I think that whole like they're learning each other thing goes away with every other song. Like you can hear it in this one but not in the other ones, and that's not a bad thing either. That's like just show like it's the first one that we worked together on, and it was it's very different from the other ones that we've done because we were getting to know how each other function, and we were getting to know um just like my style and his style, and trying to merge them and make something that like we were both really really proud of. And I think that we did come up with that. um it was just a very different process in comparison to all the other ones, but I think it was I'm very grateful for the process, and I think it turned out really great, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah,
I hope he is
it's
too.
no, it's a really good song. You should definitely
Thank
be
you.
proud of it.
Thank
Um,
you.
so on that note, we're going to move on to your second song, which you released in January 2024, which is Forces of the not of the Nature, Fortune. I can't speak English anymore. This always happens about this time in the interviews. Um, Forces of Nature, which released in January 2024. So here it is.
So,
I remember when I fell for your willow eyes and your incandescent smile. You brought me back to life. I can't quite explain it. With you I lose track of time, and the seasons go by and by. I'm taken by the tide. I don't need saving. The push and the pull and the rhythm of stars in the sky above. Magical, ethereal love. All the forces of nature, baby, you and I. Every meteor shower and the northern lights. It's a cosmic pull, it's your lightning. A universal dance between earth and sea. You and me. Everything. You and me. I could tell you all the ways that you make me glow, but I'm sure you already know. You're my idea of home. I can't quite explain it. I trust you with my soul. Your heart's a blushing gold, and if the oceans overflow, I don't need saving. The push and the pull and the rhythm of the moon and the stars in the sky above. Magical, ethereal love. All the forces of nature, baby, you and I. Every meteor shower and the northern lights. It's a cosmic pull, it's your lightning. A universal dance between earth and sea. You and me. Everything. You and me. If the clouds get heavy, I trust that we won't fall. You hold me sweet and steady. We make the perfect storm. The push and the pull and the rhythm of the moon and the stars in the sky above. Magical, ethereal love. All the forces of nature, baby, you and I. Every meteor shower and the northern lights. It's a cosmic pull, it's your lightning. A universal dance between earth and sea. All the forces of nature, baby, you and I. Every meteor shower and the northern lights. It's a cosmic pull, it's your lightning. A universal dance between earth and sea. You and me. Everything. You and me.
So that was Forces of Nature. Um, yeah, I have to say I love this song so
Thank
much.
you.
I'm
Aw.
gonna be honest, I've been at work. So I work in a school, so currently it's the holidays, where we are, the summer break. So we can kind of I come in during the holidays and stuff like that and do my work. And I've just at my desk, I've just turned up the volume to your music at the moment, like especially Forces of Nature and on my mind.
Oh, thank you.
And I've just like I think a few of my colleagues have gotten a little bit sick and tired of it because it's the same two songs on repeat. But I don't care.
Oh.
Um, so I figured I'd just start off just talking about the song, with the first line which I put when I did the review of it on the blog, which was a laid back folk pop song that leans into the idea of love being intertwined with fate. Is this Am I sort of hitting on the right vibe?
Yeah, definitely. That's 1,000% what it's about. I wrote this, this is the first song that I wrote for like the project that I'm currently working on. Um, Essentially what wound up happening is I was playing something on the piano. It was just like three chords over and over, and I was like, I feel like I hear something in here, and like the bass line, like the thing, I heard it in my brain. I was like, I need to do something with this, but I don't know what. So I walked away, took a shower, and I was thinking about that fate thing with the video that I talked about earlier with
Yeah,
John's mom. And I was like, that's really creepy that that happened. And I also was just thinking about how like sometimes I feel like me and John can just read each other's minds. So I was like, oh, that's also really creepy. So I was like, that's some weird universal stuff. And then I like started stringing words together in the shower, and then I have this like voice memo where you can hear the shower running, and you can hear that I'm like actively trying not to get my phone wet. And I don't know where that voice memo is, but I'll have to find it because it's really funny. And and then I sent that to Dave, and then I came in front of the piano and did the rest. And he's like, "Yeah, that works." I don't think I did any rewrites except for the original version didn't have the bridge. Had no bridge.
yeah,
It just went straight into the end. Um, but it's definitely, you got it on the nose. That's what it's about.
nice. So I suppose like to sidetrack about the message behind the song, but the fact that you've also got a guitar solo in this one. So who did that?
Oh, good golly. So the incredible Kevin Spielman, it's a connection from Justin at Waysound, basically. I think they're really close. And I said, Justin, I think this needs electric guitar. And he goes, let me call Kevin. And comes in, and he had this guitar. It was like an ergonomic guitar. I think that's the word. So like it didn't look like a guitar, but it was a guitar. And he whipped it out and just starts playing it. And he had this idea for the solo, and I was like, that's exactly like the vibe that I was going for. Perfect, amazing. And then he had all these other ideas for like things to add throughout the song. And I knew that I wanted to add guitar throughout the song, but I didn't know what I wanted it to sound like. And he like had the idea that like the little noodles throughout. What he played was perfect first try, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're a freaking genius!" And he was great to work with. I worked with him for another song that we had to step away from in the studio because
Mm,
I like got stumped for a little bit, but he recorded some guitar parts for it that I'm really excited for everyone to hear. I don't know when that's going to happen because I need to get into the studio to finish it. But no, he's great to work with, and I'm very grateful for the work he did on this song because it's sick. Every time I hear it, I feel like I'm levitating.
so do you think Justin may have tipped Kevin off, like said, "Oh, well, I think like might want this sort of idea."
I'm sure he did because basically he sent Kevin the track ahead of time, and he was like, "Hey, this is what we're looking for." And also just like Kevin's really talented,
Mm,
so I think just by listening to it, he could have picked up what we were putting down. Um,
yeah,
Even if we didn't give him any like, here's the vibes, here's what we want, do something. Um, like even if we
yeah,
didn't give him any sort of like guidelines, I think he would have come up with something incredible regardless. And I think because he's brilliant. Because the process for the other one that we were working on, he like on the spot was coming up with new things. And I was like, wow,
yeah,
this is crazy. I hope that I get to work with him again because it was so fun.
yeah. I suppose that's the thing with I think we touched on it previously with talented musicians, with the fact that you don't really need to give them much influence.
Mhm.
Like you play them the track, they're just like, okay, I got an idea. Let's run it back. Um, and that's it's so cool to work with just instrumental players in general instead of just doing everything on the computer.
Mhm.
Like just live music, there's something else about it. Having someone just do things live. Um,
Right.
like it's I I've got a colleague that I work with, Matt. He's an amazing electric guitarist, but he kind of I sort of sit with him in the room and sort of he's there just sort of playing stuff, and he just picks up a guitar and just even if we're playing something already, like, and he's just coming through and going, okay, let's go. And he comes in and just
Right.
doesn't know the song, but just comes and starts noodling in, and he
Hmm.
does everything fits somehow. And
Right.
I
I
saw that,
think there
yeah,
are some brilliant people out there.
yeah. But is I suppose that's sort of what you felt with Kevin coming in and just doing the guitar and just sort of nailing it with the
Yeah,
vibe and everything.
100%. He was great to work with, but also just great to talk to. He was just a great guy. And he he came in with ideas. He was he and the ideas were very like dynamic. It wasn't
Yeah.
just like we could try this. It was like this is something that I think would really beef this up. And it did. And I'm
Fair
grateful
enough.
for that because I don't think the song would be the same without any of the additions that he had.
Yeah. So I think that's quite a clear message for any new musician. If you have someone that's an instrumental player for any instrument, get them in the studio.
Yes, 100%.
Um, yeah, much better than doing anything on the computer.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so talking about the backing track, because of course we've got the guitar doing the solo and doing little bits throughout the song. We've also got synths in there.
Oh, yeah.
Did Justin layer those in?
Yeah, so I played the original, like the bass line situation. And then the chords just to lay it out and give us something to work with at first.
Yeah,
And that's kind of how it works whenever I go to the studio with Justin is I'll play because I write most of my stuff at the piano. And so I just played whatever was happening in my brain. I gave him that as like a framework, and we always do a scratch track.
yeah,
Um, and so that's what that was. So we did that scratch sort of situation, and a scratch vocal take, and then we started playing with different sounds. So different synths, different um pads, uh a lot of different drums. I think most of the time that we spent in the studio was trying to find the right drums, which was a project in and of itself, because I was like, I want it to like feel like it's coming from inside the earth. And we found one, but like we went through a lot of drums to find something and then like also tweak it to make it sound exactly like how we wanted it to sound.
hmm
Um, and I'm so grateful for Justin because his brain is massive and he was able to just be like, you know what to do to make it sound like that.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool. And also to have someone like Justin that knows those sort of ins and outs of production.
Right.
Because as I
Yeah.
mentioned before, and I'm just going to keep throwing this message out there about the instrumental players, producers as well. Because a lot of us want to learn how to produce, and it's great that we want to learn. But when you're working on a project that you want to get out there and everything, when you're not sure about how to do stuff and you know people that know how to do it, definitely lean on their expertise because
Oh yeah.
yeah, they're the masters.
Yeah,
So,
and not even just that, but like sometimes when you're working, like when you're in the studio with someone and you're working on something, they might have an idea that you would have never thought of, but it
mm,
becomes an integral part of the song. Um, and I think that like there were a couple things in Forces of Nature, but definitely more things in On My Mind that were Justin's idea
mm,
that I would never have thought of on my own. And I think that I talk in terms of brain cells when it comes to stuff like this. I'm like, I sometimes need more than just my own singular brain cell to
yeah.
produce any sort of thoughts. And so when I'm in the studio, I'm like, Justin has more than one brain cell, and I have, one, and then we just put them all together, and then we make something really sick. And he has great ideas, and he executes them flawlessly. So I'm grateful that I can collaborate with someone like that.
Yeah. I have to say, I love the fact that you describe the production knowledge and songwriting knowledge in brain cells. I haven't
I
heard that.
describe everything in brain cells.
Okay. Well, I haven't heard that term used for production of music and stuff before, so that's quite cool. I'm gonna have to
Oops.
start using that.
Gotta make it silly, otherwise it's not fun.
Yeah, no, exactly right. So we're gonna have a listen to your last song, which you've got out. and that is uh, my mouse decided not to work anymore. Amazing. So that is On My Mind, you released June 2024, so this year.
Mhm.
So we're gonna have a listen to that, and we're gonna just completely vibe out to that track.
Yeah,
And
I will be dancing. Sorry.
that's fine, don't worry. And then we'll be back to talk about On My Mind.
All right.
Paradise. It's a lazy afternoon on a Sunday kind of high, with my baby's arms around me in the dead of night. I could stay here for forever and a lifetime. I can't help thinking about my love, like I'm 16 with a crush. For me, he's the only one. My baby's on my mind. I tell him all the time. My baby's on my baby's on my mind. I'm drunk and he's the wine. My baby's on my mind. Symphony. It's a melt your heart, fill your soul kind of masterpiece. With my baby's voice, he's singing me a melody. Sounds like I can't help dreaming about my love, like a schoolgirl with a crush. Call me baby, call my bluff. My baby's on my mind. I tell him all the time. My baby's on my baby's on my mind. I'm drunk and he's the wine. My baby's on my He's my favorite distraction, his magnetic attraction. I can never get enough. He's an easy decision, I'd go anywhere with him. I can't help but fall in love.
Nice. So yeah, I knew almost all the lyrics to that song. Is how much I've listened to it.
Oh, thank you.
So I'll quickly read out the description on the blog, on the post for a minute, and then we'll jump straight into it. So, a pop-inspired song that leans into the idea of having a crush on your mind all the time. Is that
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, like, I wouldn't say crush. I mean, it's about John again. Big
okay?
shock. Ooh. But no, it because at the time I was working from home and I was waiting for him to
Mm,
come home, and I was like, we share each other's location because I'm paranoid about getting kidnapped and or murdered. So so I'm like, can you make sure that I don't die? So we share each other's locations. And he was at work and I was waiting for him to come home, kind of like that SpongeBob quote that's like, what do you do all day when I'm gone? I'm like, wait for you to come back. So I was waiting for him to come home and I kept checking his location. I was like, man, I'm just thinking about John all the time. And then I was playing the same chords over and over. And then I had the idea and it was a silly it was a little unserious. And I think that's what makes it fun is because it's not so like overly dramatic and serious, even though it is
Yeah.
also very overly dramatic, but it's more
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It is a fun song to vibe along to. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm listening to it, I can't help. I know I've mentioned her so many times in this interview, and I'm going to mention her again. Um, but I can hear Taylor Swift elements in the vocals and even in the overdubs that you have. Is she influencing you in this track?
Definitely. I wrote this at I when did I write? Oh, I wrote this like last summer, I think. Like last July. Right before we went up to the place where Stockholm's about. And then while we were up there, it was stuck in my head the whole time and I was like, I can't not put this out. But when I was writing it, I was listening to a lot of Midnight's like the album, the
Yeah.
whole album just over and over and over because like I just can't get enough of it. Like it's still like just it does it for me. So I think that's where like a lot of the like synth pop energy comes from.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the overdubs are very 1989. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also
I
those were
got that.
painful to do because I was because those were painful to do though because I had a kidney infection when we were like finalizing all the
Yeah, I read
vocals
that.
and yeah, it was really great. I because it like basically what happens when you have a kidney infection, and I've had three in the last 5 years, so that's really good. Is when you breathe, it like presses into your knee and it feels amazing. Um, and so I was like, well, like the song isn't that high. I don't have to like sing that high, so I won't have to take as deep of breaths and like it'll be a little easier and I'll be able to control that pain a little bit. So I rock up to the studio and I'm like ready to finalize everything. And Justin's like, what if we did some high notes? And I was like, Justin, I'm gonna need you to bring me some ibuprofen if you want that to happen. But we can definitely do that. Just please help me. And we did it.
Oh.
I think that's the most I've ever sweat in the studio though, because I was
Hmm.
like, it's
Hmm.
like this hurts so bad, but it's so worth it. And also he's always right. So
So as I don't know whether you can probably tell this based on my voice. I'm a bass baritone singer. So, I mean, I say
mhm.
baritone, I struggle with those high notes sometimes. But oh my God, when you're hitting the notes which are maybe just in your range, but the top sort of bit of your range, while doing that
Mhm.
in pain, ouch.
Yeah, it was something. It was, I came home and I was like, John, you're never gonna guess what I did. Because before I left, I was like, at least I don't have to sing high today. And then I was like, you're gonna laugh at me. You're gonna laugh so hard right now. It was something. But it was worth it. Like, I'm grateful for that experience. And I'm also just like, I'm not the type of person who lets like, um, an injury get in the way. Like when I was in marching band, there was one time that I like fully sprained my foot and they were like, we could fill your hole. And I was like, no, you will not. So I performed with like a swollen purple foot and definitely shouldn't have done it, but you know, I'm a the type of person who pushes through things and probably shouldn't be, but oops.
Yeah, no, you got to fight through the pain. I mean, tonight I've somehow like gotten invited to play at a pub for like a
Mhm.
2 hour set, and I've been
That's awesome.
rehearsing all day on guitar and singing, and I can't feel the tips of my fingers. It hurts
Oh no.
to press down on the string, but you, you got to take your opportunities and keep going with them, no matter
Right.
what.
Yeah. Congrats. That's so exciting. It's awesome.
Thanks. But yeah, I have to say, your experience, I would probably not show up to the studio. with a kidney infection. If they
I
told,
was in the I was in the ER the day before and they
oh
were
my
like pumping
God.
me full of antibiotics and I was like, this is great. I was with John and I was like, I have to
Oh my
I scheduled
God.
studio time for tomorrow. I'm going. Like I'm not gonna not go. That would be dumb of me. And so I still went and I still did it, but like I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah, see, I would have gone, but if someone then told me that I've got to sing high notes in the studio after being or still being in pain, I probably would tell them to go away. Um, so no, but that's very impressive that you managed to
Thank you.
get through that. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, I think it makes for a fun little yarn to spin.
well, hopefully your kidney's okay now.
I think it
Um,
is, but we'll find out.
well, at the
It
moment it
creeps up
seems
on
to be.
me.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, so again, the synths in the song,
Mhm.
um, that was Justin, but
Yes. So again, similar to Forces of Nature, I laid down like a scratch track just as a guide, like, okay, this is how I've been playing it when I write it and when I practice it and
mm,
whatever. And we record scratch vocals just as like a almost like a map or like a skeleton so that we know like where everything is gonna live. Um, Justin made it sparkle.
yeah,
We sat down. I think the first sound we picked was like that intro sound, that like big, like almost buzzy sound. And the sound that I was going for was um that like heavily inspired that was from Glass Animals, The Other Side of Paradise.
okay.
There's like this big bombastic synth in the beginning. And I was like, that's what I'm hearing in my head for this. And we found one, and that's kind of that was like our starting block, and we were able to use that as a really good jumping off point to guide us.
Nice. Yeah, because actually thinking back to the song, it literally just starts with straight into the synth, and it's
Yeah,
really nice. It's quite cool. So,
it's
oh,
a lot.
okay, great. Straight into it.
Good
Let's go.
morning. Mhm. Wakes you up.
Um, yeah, it does. So your album cover as well, holding, I don't know if it's got wine in there or if it's empty, but you're lying somewhere
It's
with a wine
juice.
glass.
Yeah. And then my cat's in the background. Well, one of my cats, I have two,
Yeah.
but they were being a nuisance that day. So they were like, "Oh, you're taking silly little pictures? Can I be part of it?" And I was like, "Respectfully, no." But
They made
the
it
one
in.
that I wound up picking has one of their little feet in it, so
Oh, that's amazing. So what,
I
any
always wanted to make center of
idea?
attention.
Yeah. Any idea why you decided to lie with a wine glass and make that an album cover?
Um, I think the song is very much so well, there's the line, I'm drunk and he's the wine. But I think the song is so that's a little on the nose. But for me, when I was listening to it and writing it, I was like, it's white sheets, it's it's laying in bed on like a sunny day and not wanting to do literally anything. But hang out with your BFF. It's very like I don't know, like kind of intimate, but also just like bright, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I suppose it,
Yeah.
it fits very well with the song in general.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
That's yeah, that's my goal.
so is there any other anecdotes for behind the song you can tell us apart from
Um, Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I mean, it only took a couple sessions in the studio, which is wild because like the one that we've been working on, we have one that we've been working on in the studio for a really long time
hmm,
called Grudge that I'm really excited. That's the other one that Kevin laid some really sick guitar stuff on. Um, but we got stumped with it. And so we were like, okay, we have 2 more hours of studio time. Let's do something else.
yeah.
So I brought this and I was like, hey, well, how about this? Like, I don't think it'll take us that long because all I'm hearing in my head is synth. And they're like, okay. So we like in half of a 4 hour block. So in 2 hours, we did the entire, or not the entire, but the majority of the synth stuff and drums. So basically the entire track. And then a scratch vocal take. And then the next session was just vocals and finalizing the sounds. And then the final session was just those high notes and then mixing and mastering.
Oh, nice.
So it
Amazing.
was very quick. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it was a great
Yeah,
outcome for a
definitely.
quick recording and everything.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really proud of it. I think it's really fun. And everyone that I've talked to about that specific song has said that they think it's really fun. And that's what I wanted out of it. Because I was like, all of my songs are so, like, I had 2 songs out, so all is a
Hmm.
big word. But I was like, they all feel so, like, slow and dramatic. Like, I need something fun and unserious. And
A vibe.
then, then we have this.
Nice. Well, it was a great addition to your repertoire so far.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
are there any other projects that are coming out soon-ish that we can know about?
Not soon-ish because I haven't been able to get into the studio because of like financial stuff.
Mm.
But Grudge is a song that I've been working on, and that's probably gonna be the next one that will see the light of day. Um, so I'll put out information for that as soon as we have information about it, but that's something that we're working on. But we're working on an EP. As of
Oh,
right now, it's an
nice.
EP. Could change. Um, just to have like a collection, a body of work that is one unit. Um, and On My Mind and Forces of Nature will be on that project. Stockholm will not. It feels like it's its own entity, and I'm going to let it stay as its own entity. I feel like it's not really friends with the other two in the way that the other two are friends with each other, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I'm excited about that. I think it'll be fun, and it's been hard to narrow down which songs to like actually bring into the studio and like try to get onto the project, but I'm excited about the ones that we've started so far.
Nice. And to point out, because I'm a massive Pokemon fan, I'm noticing a Pikachu behind you, which I'm loving.
Oh, there's two.
Is there two Pikachus? Oh, nice. Sorry to anyone
Yeah,
who's not a
John
Pokemon
John
fan,
really likes
just
Pikachu.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John really likes Pikachu, so I got him. Both of these are gifts that I got for him um over our many moons together. So we have two that live on our bed.
Amazing. So yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the cats
Sorry to
like them.
anyone who's not a Pokemon fan, but I had to shout that out. Um, Another shout out just before we end, um, is that in the background we have been working on a song as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
We started the project.
so there will be that in the near future. I don't know when it's being released, um,
Mhm.
but there is a project, and it's called Know the Future. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that, or everyone will have to keep an eye out for that. And yeah,
Yeah, really
but
excited about it.
until that happens, this has been an amazing interview, Inad, and I'm glad to have you on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for even inviting me in the first place. That meant a lot receiving that message, and I'm glad that we got to chat and sit down and have this time together.
Yeah. Well, it's been great, and I'm sure everyone's going to love listening to your current music, your future music, and getting to know you a bit more. Um, so when this comes out, I'm just looking at my calendar because I it's sort of shifted. So
Mhm.
this interview will be coming out on the 11th of September. So when this airs, you'll all be listening to this on the 11th. I'm talking about this a couple of weeks beforehand. But should you, after listening to this, be interested in more artists? If you haven't already, listen to the past few interviews with, oh God, let me remember, Danny, with Izzy MacArthur, with Shifra Jacobs, Matt Clark, and Georgia Scarlett. I'm losing my voice a bit. Um, and those are all talented artists as well as Inad. So go check them out after listening to this episode. And yeah, so Inad, where can people find you? Music and social media and
Yeah, my music is on all streaming platforms and on social media. I'm on Instagram. My name is just my name. I think there's a dot in between the first and last. It's INAD.LZBTH. Um, and on TikTok, I don't think there's a dot in between. I think it's just INADLZBTH. And then I'm also on YouTube. That's where I do most of my long form covers that we did talk about earlier today.
nice. So make sure to go check out Inad on all those platforms. Um, because she's posting constantly and it's great material. So go check that out. And
Thank you.
yeah, so after Inad, the next interview that will be coming out um, is on the, let me remind myself, is the 18th of September, and that's with Dublin Rose from Brisbane. Um, yeah, so go check that out, and I'll see you all in the next Melody of Music Introducers interview. Thank you so much, Inad, for coming on,
Thank you so much for having me.
and I'll see everyone in the next episode. See you later.